Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Pat with Codecademy, and today we're talking about three things, three myths, three misconceptions that I wish someone had pulled me aside and told me about when I was first starting my career as a programmer. Let's check them out. So there are three myths, and I call them myths, but they're really misconceptions that I wish someone had told me. And the first one is about programming is about how much you code. And while it is true that at any level you do have to write code and you will be writing a lot of good code, the emphasis should not be on how much you code. And what I mean by that is that there's a traditional, typical programmer career trajectory, and it's in the shape of a reverse bell curve. And you're just starting out as a junior developer and you're writing tons of code and you're contributing and you're committing and you're fixing bugs and you're pushing up stuff and you're rebasing. And you don't need to know what any of that necessarily means, but when you're just starting out as a developer, it's very output driven. But if you get good at that and you stick with it, you'll get into more mid-level development. And you're still writing code, but you're also in a lot of meetings about what code should people be working on. What should the junior developers be working on? And you're also helping them get unstuck, which can take a lot of time. So you're not working on as much stuff as you used to when you were a junior developer, and when you get to the senior developer level, you are making decisions about what technologies should be used, what strategies should we be using for the company to solve the problems. And you're fixing problems, you're refactoring, which is just another way of saying you're making it better, something a little bit more terse, a little bit more efficient. And so you actually end up deleting more code than you write. Now, this isn't true for everyone or true for every company or situation, but I found that the case that is more common is that as you become better, you tend to delete more code than you write. So what does that mean? What does an effective programmer mean? I found that being deliberate and thoughtful and strategic about what code you write is a lot more important. Now, you're going to make a lot of mistakes, and that's true, but what you don't want to do is write code for the sake of writing code, for the sake of output, because you'll actually end up creating more problems than you solve than if you were to be a little bit more thoughtful. There's kind of a joke in our industry that, you know, weeks of coding can save you hours of planning. So to give you a story to go with this, I was hired at a company as a junior developer, and I was a React developer at the time, and I thought that I was coming in to build React. And so I came into the company and I thought that I was going to be working on React, and turns out that none of the company's front ends had any React code. They were all in the Ruby on Rails stack. And so I realized after working there for a year that if we were to turn all of our front ends into React front ends, it would have taken us probably about a year of writing code. We would have written a ton of code. We would have solved none of the business problems. We would have helped none of our customers. We would have helped none of the stakeholders. We really wouldn't have advanced much of anything. We would have moved the needle at all. And just to say that we've had things in React. So at the end of the day, programming is really about how smartly you code. So the first one is it's not about how much you code, it's about how smartly you code. The second one is programming is about how much you know. Now, it is true that there is a base level of knowledge you need to understand in order to be an effective programmer, but there's a lot of emphasis on how much you know, and that can be especially intimidating for junior developers or beginners who don't know any code at all, because it seems like there's just so much out there. And I have good news, because programming is not about how much you know. So if you think about it, there's a lot that you have to learn, and oftentimes in a very short amount of time, and it's specific to the problems that you're working on. So that's tough enough. But then we have to factor in changing industries. So, the clients that we work for, or the businesses that we work in the industries that we work in, they're trying to be innovative. They're trying to do things either better than their competitors are doing it, or they're trying to do it in a new way that no one else has done. And that means that there's very little precedent often for the stuff that you're working on. And especially at that point in your career, it may or may not have necessarily been done before. So it can oftentimes feel like you're on a treadmill and you're just running uphill, and it's exhausting. So what is programming really about? Well, It's about how well you learn. So there's going to come a point where you will have learned enough, but there's no way that you can learn it all fast enough. So or know it all fast enough. So you have to learn it. And if you think about, put yourself in the shoes of a senior developer, and you're called over by a junior developer to get them unstuck. They've been working in that code base for weeks, months even, and you have to understand what the problem is. And you have to understand it in a matter of seconds to the point where you can actually get them unstuck. Really effective programmers are good at knowing how they learn. And whether that's, reading documentation or sandboxing something and poking it, or, watching video tutorials, whatever way makes you an effective programmer by way of learning is the best way to go. And to give you a story along with this, I had a buddy named Jesse. I called him my senior Silver Surfer. He was a kind of had a surfer vibe, and I brought him something that I'd been working on for weeks. And I thought I had tried everything, and I was at my wit's end. I was really frustrated, kind of embarrassed, and I brought it to him, and he just took one look at it, and he moved a couple things around, and he fixed it in a matter of seconds. And it was humiliating. And I turned to him in earnest, and I said, "Hey, Jesse, does this ever get any easier?" And he said, "Nope. You just you just keep working on harder stuff, the better you get." And that's so true, is that the better you get as a programmer, you're going to be tasked with working on things that no one else has ever worked on before. Maybe nobody's ever worked on it ever. So at the end of the day, you do have to know a lot, but really programming is about how well you learn. And the dirty secret of our industry, and that's the entire premise behind Stack Overflow, is that we forget stuff all the time. So it's really about knowing how you as a programmer learn. Now, the last one here is something I really wish someone had pulled me aside, because I think that programming tends to attract personalities that gravitate towards industries they're not people focused, and so we think that programming is for those who don't like working with people. And boy, was I wrong, because programming is still customer service centric. It is very much a part of what it means to be a programmer, and especially in your day to day. So if you're working with a machine most of the time, who are your customers? Well, they're your coworkers, they're your clients, your bosses, and your stakeholders. And these are all people that are on your side, but they might not know where you're coming from. And why did you do what you did? Or why is it taking so long? What are the constraints that you're working under? If you want to get them on your side, programming is absolutely about customer service. No one's really against you, but they might not understand what you're doing. They might not have the technical background to know what you're doing. And at the end of the day, if everything that you've written never gets shipped, never gets merged, never actually gets deployed, well, you might not have written it at all. So programming is absolutely about customer service. So as a last story, we were working with a design agency, and they had a lot of great graphic designers, but they'd never done any programming whatsoever, never done any web development. And they were giving us designs that were really tough to turn into designs, into web interfaces. And so we sat them down and we explained, like, hey, like, when you give us it's really problematic for us. It takes a lot of extra time, and you have complete freedom to move stuff around on your screen with your mouse and your keyboard, but we have technology constraints. We can't just move stuff around that easily. And to accomplish some of the designs that you have, we have to come up with some really innovative hacks that make the code base really brittle. Like, it's just not a good design. So once they understood that, they weren't purposely trying to make our lives, tough. They just didn't know the designs they were working on were so problematic. So once we were all on the same page, and we didn't do it in a way that made them feel ashamed, we just helped them understand where we were coming from. And that made everybody's lives easier. The stress levels all went down. So to wrap this up, it's not about how much you code, it is about how smartly you program. And it's not about how much you know or remember, it's about how well you learn. Being an effective programmer is knowing how well you as a person learn. And it's not about, just writing stuff for computers to figure out. It is about getting people to work with you and be on your side, because at the end of the day, we build applications that are so large and so complex that we have to work in teams. So we have to be effective team players, and we have to get people on our side that can ship the code that matters to our companies and what we're trying to work on. Thanks for watching. This is Pat with Codecademy. If you want to join the conversation, subscribe to this YouTube channel or leave us a comment below. And if you want to take your skills to the next level, start by going over to Codecademy today.